This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.
There seems to be an endless stream of online content related to reading that are trying to teach you how to memorize certain sections of a book. In fact, the entire learning culture seems to have this obsession with memorizing stuff instead of understanding stuff. And today in this video essay, I'm going to exercise a bit of that contrarian spirit in me and to argue that memorization is actually not what you should be aiming for when you're trying to understand a piece of work or when you're trying to really learn about the universe. And under certain circumstances, memorization can actually serve as a bit of a roadblock on your road towards understanding. So it seems to be the case that whenever you turn on the TV, whenever you rent a movie off of Amazon, extremely intelligent people depicted in films, in, well, for example, Good Will Hunting, or for example, some of these crazy genius films like A Beautiful Mind, the genius or the intelligent person in these films seems to always be depicted as someone who could recite a piece of poem or a piece of paragraph from a novel perfectly, or someone who could formulate a very comprehensive understanding of a very complicated subject. And through this entire process of representation, our culture right now seems to have equated understanding and intelligence with memorization. And sometimes you don't even need to turn your attention towards films. It is evident in your own high school education. If you're in high school, just look at your examination papers. A lot of these questions are geared towards regurgitation and just you vomiting out whatever you've read in class. But as it turns out, I'm actually not the only one who has a bone to pick with this entire system of memorization that we're all very much addicted to in our learning culture. The French essayist Michel de Montaigne, a super learned person, directed a burn against the smart people of his time. They bedecked themselves in other men's armor, without even their fingerprints showing. And it is easy for the learned to do on some commonplace subject. They carry through their projected work with bits of what was written in ancient times, patched together higgledy-piggledy. In the case of those who wish to hide their borrowings and pass them off as their own, their action is first and foremost unjust and mean. They have nothing worthwhile of their own to show off, so they try to recommend themselves with someone else's goods. For Michel de Montaigne, being intelligent actually has nothing to do with using other people's pieces of thinking to patch something together and adopt this new patchwork as your own. And in fact, this is one of the first lessons that I've learned as a college student at university studying literature and philosophy. The professors, if they're competent, they actually do not care about how many papers you've cited in one of your reports. They don't care how long your citation list is. They don't care if you cited esteemed scholars. If you don't somehow have your own take on a piece of literature, your own interpretation of a piece of philosophy, it's just a bad paper at the end of the day. Hence, to think well is to use other people's words as scaffolds for you to build your own worldview, your own thinking, your own ideas, which in a sense renders all of these little gimmicks on how to memorize more parts of this book completely moot. And in the words of Montaigne himself, I only quote others the better to quote myself. So now that we've identified a problem with memorization, or this cultural glorification of someone who had memorized a bunch of facts, we have to wind the clock all the way back to a time before the Italian Renaissance. In 1333, a scholar and poet named Petrarch discovered a copy of Cicero's Pro Archia Poeta, where Cicero praised the value of using the humanities as tools to enrich oneself. And for context, Italy, especially Florence, during 1333 was just a breeding ground of misery, full of religious conflicts, full of people ripping each other's heads off, and full of floods. So collectively, people were yearning for some higher form of understanding. They're trying to make sense of all this misery. The discovery of this treatise of Cicero by Petrarch was somewhat of a eureka moment for the scholar. Then and there, he saw what was missing in Italian culture at the time, which is this element of self-cultivation through engaging with classical works. This formed the start of the Renaissance humanist movement, where the study of the humanities was at the forefront of education systems. And the goal with this entire study of the humanities, including theology, philosophy, literature, poetry, and rhetorics, was to enrich the selves for it to be equipped to deal with the difficult times ahead. And the duty of a scholar and a professor at the time was to mine out these great lessons from classical pieces of work and to disseminate these great insights to the Italian people. But unfortunately, as great as this insight was, it quickly degenerated into something that Petrarch would have hated to see. The Renaissance humanities degenerated fairly quickly into scholarship and antiquarianism, which simply means that over time the academies became a little bit too interested in the nitty-gritties compared to using these concepts to enrich people's lives. Classical education attracted scholars and teachers who had no love for the ancients and no sense of how they might use them in their own lives. And this degeneration sort of prompted the entire fascination with memorization, fascination with technicality, instead of using the humanities to enrich oneself. So as you can see, there are direct parallels to what was happening during the Renaissance and what's happening to our academic system right now. If you just go with the flow in high school or at universities, you're probably going to end up with a degree with very little understanding. You might have memorized great passages from Spinoza to Proust to Samuel Beckett, but if you haven't actually extracted any personal value from these pieces of works, well, I think you might have just wasted your time on a useless degree. So then now the question becomes, what is the point of engaging with these pieces of literature and philosophy and history? What is the point of engaging so deeply with the humanities? And here's my best attempt at resolving this question, which is to increase your requisite variety. Big scary term, I know, so now let's unpack it. In a field of study called cybernetics, requisite variety is defined as the larger the variety of actions available to a controlled system, the larger the variety of perturbations it is able to compensate, which in English means the more flexible an organism is, the more it is able to withstand external influences. And when we apply that insight to education, it simply means that the more flexible and the more ways that the mind could think, the more we're able to deal with external challenges of the world. Love it or hate it, life is pretty difficult. Love troubles, family troubles, academic troubles, work troubles, all of these troubles are coming your way as you're maturing to an adult. And for a mind that has very little requisite variety, it simply cannot take on the complexities of the external world. And here's where the argument for intelligent reading comes in. If you engage with texts in philosophy, history, literature, and even modern self-help books, the right ideas will expand your requisite variety, will expand your bag of tricks, so to speak, so when shit does hit the fan, you know exactly how to deal with it, or in some cases, at least you know how to adjust yourself emotionally to the situation. But note that our culture's obsession with memorization actually has very little to do with increasing your requisite variety in your head. A complete fool can read 100 books a year, yet their life could still be in a complete state of chaos and be a complete mess. And for me right now personally, reading every book, it's kind of like searching for little golden nuggets of insights, golden nuggets of tricks that I can add to my arsenal to deal with this very complicated thing called life. And when those little golden nuggets of insight get combined with life experience and life itself, that is what's going to facilitate a paradigm shift. The term itself is coined by the philosopher Thomas Kuhn, and whenever you have a paradigm shift, it just kind of feels like your brain had a whole system reboot or an entire OS update. The way you look at reality will fundamentally change, the way you treat people will ultimately change, and your relationship with the world in itself will also change after you've had a paradigm shift. And that's really the real goal of intellectual and personal development, which is to have enough of these paradigm shifts so that when you act from this place of having all these perspectives, all of your actions become healthier, the way you treat people becomes healthier, and the way you deal with the world becomes less neurotic. So when people shoot me a message on Instagram or leave a comment on a video of mine asking what is the point of reading it, what is the point of wrestling with these difficult texts, I guess my answer now is that I'm always looking for something to change my mind. I'm always looking for another perspective. I'm always looking for more requisite variety so I can use that variety to guide me towards the righteous actions. And in the future, I'm super excited to create more video essays just like this one on how to apply literature and philosophy practically in your own life. Bottom line, in my opinion, reading philosophy, history, and literature should be done with the prime aim of developing yourself or enriching yourself, or be done with this ideal of the Renaissance humanism. And this bad habit of memorization and regurgitation is simply a roadblock on your journey towards understanding. And for now, thank you for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Now, before I let you go here, this video was made possible by the support and help of our sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. In short, Squarespace is a very powerful online platform which allows you to design and publish your dream website. And personally, I use Squarespace to host my personal website, which you could check out in the description down below, because they feature beautiful templates that you can use to make your website stand out from the crowd. They also have a feature which allows you to connect with your audience and connect with your subscribers through gated subscriber-only content content. So if you're on track to starting an online business, starting an online store, or even a blog, you can use their latest feature to connect directly with your audience through email newsletters. All of this alongside powerful blogging tools and audience insights are all packed within one very easy to use platform. So if you're ready to start a dream website and potentially display all of your social media content on one page, Squarespace is your go-to platform. Go to squarespace.com/rcwaldun to receive 10% off at checkout when you're ready to launch. And thank you Squarespace for making this video essay possible, and I will see you in the next video.